Okay. So, let's do first the completing the square technique. What are the three words that pop into your head when you see completing the square? Everybody? All right, let's do it on three. 1, 2, 3.
Half and square.
Half and square, very good. So I half the 8, that gives me x plus 4, and then I square. The problem is, I'm missing something over here that makes this truly equal to x plus 4 squared. What am I missing? Everybody? 16, good. So then I also have to put a 16 on the right. So I get x plus 4 squared equals 21. Then I square root both sides, and I get x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 21. And then I minus 4, and I get x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 21. Okay? Preguntas? Questions? Okay, do you remember the first time you saw that and you looked at it like it was so hard? And it was so weird, and now you look at it like, no, it's not hard. It's really pretty straightforward and it's pretty mechanical. Well, I think in the next couple of days you will feel the same exact way with the quadratic formula, okay? So the first thing about the quadratic formula is that I have to get it all on one side. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and that gives me x squared plus 8x minus 5 equals 0. Then I have to identify a, b, and c. What is a? 1. B? 8, C, negative 5. So that gives me x equals negative of 8, which is negative 8, right? Plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5 all over 2 times 1. So that means x will equal negative 8 plus or minus the square root of. Now this is 64, and if I do all of this under the radical, I get 84 all over 2 times 1 is 2. Now, at this point in time, I have yet to teach you how to simplify the square root of 84. It's really pretty simple. We will spend the whole lesson on it in the future, but for now we haven't done that because of when the vacation is. Basically, you ask yourself, what's the biggest perfect square that divides into 84? And it's 4. So it's square root of 4, square root of 21. The square root of 4 is 2. And then 2 divides into both of them. And I get x equals negative 4 plus or minus 2, radical 21. So as you can tell, the answers match. Now, if you left the answer this before it was reduced, for now that would get you full credit. Okay? In time, you will learn the next step. But for now, this is perfectly good. So one of the weird things about this course, the predecessor to this course was called Integrated Algebra. And in Integrated Algebra, you learned a lot about radicals. And you worked with them. You added, subtracted, multiplied, divide. You did a whole lot of different things and simplified. And in this course, you do nothing with radicals except we want you to learn how to simplify this. So we do teach you how to simplify a radical and stop. The problem is it doesn't really fit anywhere. It doesn't logically flow. So I haven't covered it yet, but we will get to it in time. Okay? Completing the square, quadratic formula. Now, for those of you who are having difficulty factoring, okay, you can always use the quadratic formula, this guy here, to solve instead of factoring. It's long, it's convoluted. You won't work out with these ugly radicals. It'll work out to whole numbers. This might have worked out to the square root of 81, which is better known as 9. And then you get like negative 8 plus 9, negative 8 minus 9. So it'll work out that way. So if you're really stuck and you haven't yet learned to factor, though it will take longer, you can use the quadratic formula and you will get it right. Okay? All right, tomorrow in class we'll do another complete the square and quadratic formula. And then next week, we'll do another day of it. How many people feel like they know it a lot better now than they did a couple of days ago? The completing the square and the quadratic formula. I think pretty soon every one of you will have your hand up and you will all say, no, this is pretty easy. It's a lot easier than I thought it was. Okay, now, the next thing that we're going to do, this chapter is like chock full of everything squared. Everything is squared. Quadratics, factoring, quadratic equations, quadratic formula, completing the square. Everything is all over the place. And this is radically different for you because you've never had to factor before in your life. You've never had to do quadratic equations before, and it's a whole new way to perceive things. Likewise, we did a little graphing earlier in the year with the quadratic formula, or I should say with quadratics, and now we're going to come back and we're really going to dig in. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, we either completely did early in the year or we hinted at early in the year. So, the first thing is it asks us to graph y equals x squared minus 4x. So, get to your calculator, enter y equals x squared minus 4x. And as I look around, pretty much everybody has that done on their calculator. Now, one thing that we went over early in the year is that you absolutely cannot, I can't emphasize this enough, you cannot look at the graph on the calculator and then try to sketch, keyword sketch, those points or that graph onto your graph paper. You need to look at the table. And you should copy the part of your table down that you're going to use in the graph. In this particular case, let's see here, this is negative b over 2h, that's 4 over 2, which is 2, so 2 will go in the middle, 1, 0, negative 1, 3, 4, 5. Now, what were the y values associated with that? Well, I love 0, 0, 0, right? And this is going to be 5, and this is, I think, negative 3, and that's negative 4, and then negative 3, 0, and 5. What we're all about today, what we are going to really focus in on, look at the symmetry. All right, I know we discussed this earlier in the year, but I really want to pay attention to that symmetry because it allows us to draw certain conclusions. Negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 0, 1, negative 3, 2, negative 4, here, here, and here. Okay, so there's the graph of the parabola. And now, let's answer some questions based on our findings. What's the axis of symmetry? Everybody? No, x equals 2. The axis of symmetry is the line that runs right down the middle. Any vertical line always begins its name with x equals. Always. What are the coordinates of the vertex? Now the vertex is the turning point. I can see the turning point on my graph, or I can look at the table. And usually, though not always, bless you, I can find the turning point on the table, or the vertex. What's the turning point? 2, negative 4. Good. Next, is the vertex a maximum or a minimum? Minimum, because it's at the bottom of the graph. What are the roots? 0 and 4. What's another name for roots? The zeros, good. I call it 0 and 4 because they're right here, 0 and 4. Then it says, using reverse the roots, factor x squared minus 4x. Here is yet another factoring technique, another way to do it. I don't suggest this becomes your primary way. This is a really good thing if you are lost on how to do it. First off, you can find the roots by looking at where it crosses the x-axis, or you can find the roots by looking for zeros in y. Okay? The x-intercepts, also known as the roots, also known as the zeros, is whenever y equals 0. So here's y equaling 0, here is y equaling 0, so the roots are 0 and 4. Now, let's pretend we were doing a quadratic equation, but let's do it backwards. X equals 0, x is equal to 4. Well, if this is true, then the factor must have been x minus 4 equals 0. Does that make sense, going backwards? Which means that this factor had to be x minus 4 equals 0. Agree? And this one I didn't have to change anything, so that means that x equals 0. So that means the roots were x and x minus 4. So in other words, by looking at the answers and working our process backwards, I arrive at the factors. So let's give you a for instance. Let's go over here. Let's say that the roots are -5 and +1. First question I have for you. If the roots are -5 and +1, what's the axis of symmetry? First thing you better say is x equals. Everybody say x equals? X equals. Now what does x equal? negative 2, right? It's got to be right smack in the middle of those two because the axis of symmetry is always the middle. It's symmetric or the same on both sides. That's what symmetry means. So here's my x equals negative 2. Now, I don't know what my vertex is, but I do know that that is my axis of symmetry. Now, what I can tell you is the roots are negative 5 and 1, which means that if I was doing an equation, I would get x equals 1 and x equals negative 5. But in order for this to be x equals 1, wouldn't the root have to be x minus 1 equals 0? And this would have to be x plus 5 equals 0? Doesn't that make sense? Right? Because, Sam, you're looking at me strange here, but wouldn't you have to add 1 to both sides and that would give you 1? And then over here, you would subtract 5 from both sides and that would give you the negative 5? So then carrying it one step back further, I would get x minus 1 times x plus 5 is 0. So in other words, the factoring is x minus 1 and x plus 5. So if you're ever absolutely stuck and you cannot figure out the factors for whatever reason, you can always just reverse the roots. The technique is called reversing the roots. What do we call it? Reversing the roots. So now you have yet a third or fourth way to factor should you be stuck. Now, ultimately, you should learn the right way to do it, but that is a technique that always works. So, let's go down a little bit further. The axis of symmetry is a quadratic function, blah, blah, blah. The vertical line is the axis of symmetry. This is important to know. Very few things I'll ask you to memorize the whole year long. This is one of them. X equals negative b over 2a. The last equation we graphed was x squared, was it plus x, 4x, or minus 4x? Minus 4x equals 0. So a is 1, b is negative 4, c is 0. Agree? According to this formula, the axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. So that would be x equals, notice, vertical line, x equals, what is b? So what's the negative of negative 4? 4 over 2 times 1 is 2, x equals 2. And on the graph, wasn't it x equals 2? Okay? Now, the reason I say I want you to commit this to memory, and again, how often this year have I said you got to memorize this? Very, very rarely. The reason is because once in a while, on the Regents exam, they say the following. Given the equation x squared minus 4x, find the axis of symmetry algebraically, which means you cannot graph it and look at it. That's finding it graphically. Sometimes they want algebraically, so you have to remember that formula, okay? Vertex is the turning point, and then it says the end behavior of the graph. Very, very simple. If the number in front is positive, the graph's a smiley face. Remember that from early in the year? And if the number in front is negative, then the graph is a frown, because negative is a down day. Okay? All right. So here's a graph, and we want to use this idea of symmetry to help us complete the graph. Now notice the points here, here are roots, and here. If the first point is negative 1, 8, what will be the y value on the last point? Everybody look. Go look down. Here's the first point, negative 1, 8. What will the y value be on the last point? 8, right? Remember we drew the arrows before that showed they were the same? What will this value be here? 3. And then this one we don't know. Okay, well, 2 what for? 3, this would then be 1, this would be 0, this would be 5. All we're using at this point is the symmetry, the patterns that we see in a quadratic graph. And we're just using it to our advantage. Now I can then peek over at the graph, and when x equals 1, what's the y value? 0. When x equals 3, what's the y value? 0. Notice that symmetry that I look for on every quadratic graph is there. It's so important to me to make sure that it's there, okay? Now I have a last question for you. What is that the equation of? Yes, I agree. The specific quadratic equation. You can do reverse the roots, and I want it all multiplied out. Right? You know what the roots are. What are the roots, everybody? 1 and 3. So x equals 1, x equals 3. Now reverse the roots and tell me the equation. You gotta multiply it all out. Reverse those roots. What do we come up with? Okay, so if this is x equals 1, then the factor would have to be x minus 1, agree? So this is x equals 3, so what does the factor have to be? X minus 3. Now, if I just do double distribute, I come up with x squared minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. And that is my equation, and the function is y equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. If they said, what's the function? Top box. If they said, what's the equation? Bottom box. And you'll notice that all I had to do was understand how this whole table relates to the graph. Remember, one of the first things I said today was, whenever you graph a quadratic, you should put in the table. Okay, what are some of the most important things that we've covered in the last 2 or 3 days? Factoring. We're gonna cover factoring a whole year. What else? Completing the square. What are the 3 words that pop into your head for completing the square? Half and square. What's something else very important? Quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is so important because if you have trouble factoring, it always works. And today with the graphing, the symmetry that you see. Shoot anything lately?
No, I shoot.
Why?
I hurt my shoulder yesterday.
What'd you do?
I don't know.
Just tweaked it? Is it a big deal or a little deal?
I don't know yet.
Does it hurt a lot or a little? Oh, I hope it feels better. You gotta get that Zeiss scope to help you out. Nice. All right, fine. We're almost there. Can you feel it?
And Jaden Badimchi, please come to the main office.
You feel it? You're almost there on those factors. Just pay attention to that middle number and those ones, right? All right.
morning, South Ocean Middle School. Today is Thursday, February 4th, and it's a great day because Dr. Pichulo's baby, Kaylee Marie, was born last night.
It's Dr. Peace.
Please rise for the pledge.
Chin hut!
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
All right, come on in.
We will now have Muriel with our weather report.
Hello, my name is Muriel Searle. The weather report for today, February 4th, 2016. Present temperature is 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels like 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Rain showers, the humidity is 91%, and the visibility is 7 miles. Dew point is 49%. Winds 9 miles per hour from the south southwest. Humidity description is 0 to 10. Barometer is 92 inches and fall. Thank you and have a pleasant day.
Excellent job, Muriel. Thank you very much. We have one birthday to announce today. Happy birthday, James Goff. And we have several announcements today. I have a reminder to 8th grade students who want to attend the ROTC presentation on Tuesday, February 9th during your lunch period. You must return your permission slip by Monday at the very latest. The National Junior Honor Society has placed a box outside the main office. We are collecting items for an animal shelter in Riverhead during the month of February. We are asking that you bring in old towels, blankets, sheets, and pillows. Your donation will help make shelter animals more comfortable while they stay at the shelter. In addition, you may certainly donate any dog food or dog treats. All items can be placed in the box. We will be collecting until February 26th. Thank you in advance for your help. The GO meeting for today is canceled. Samba Valentine's Day grants will be sold during lunch period. Send a sweet to a special friend, teacher, or staff member. All Valentines will be delivered on Friday, February 12th, 2016. Basketball intramurals tomorrow from 7 to 7:40 a.m. This Friday at 6:30, we are hosting our annual volleyball tournament. Everyone welcome, create a team, and join in the fun. Any questions, see Coach Farmer or Coach Padalecchia. Fame is holding a breakfast fundraiser at Applebee's on Saturday from 8 to 10. Please see Mrs. DJ if you have any questions. Yearbooks are on sale for $35 until February 28th. Order forms are available in room 207. This week is Spirit Week. Today is Heritage Day, and tomorrow, School Colors Day. Wear your black and red to show your school spirit. And finally, I'm sure you've noticed that there are some boxes in the cafeteria. We just launched a new campaign called Jeans for Teens to help the local kids in our area living in homeless shelters. Our goal is to collect as many gently used jeans for donation to the shelters in the month of February. Jeans are an essential clothing item that all kids need. They can be worn multiple times between washes and can be dressed up or dressed down, and they provide a sense of normalcy to the person wearing them. So let's clean out our closets and make this a friendly competition between the grades. Which grade will come out on top with the most donations during the month? Find your grades box in the cafeteria and make a donation this month. Your donation will make a difference. And I'm proud to say that it was actually a South Ocean student, 7th grader Catherine Ford, who approached me with this idea, and we're very excited about kicking off our Jeans for Teens. So please be sure to participate, clean out those closets and drawers, and bring in your jeans. That's it for our announcements. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Caroline Barth, please report to the main office.
How you all doing? Nice. Glad to hear it. Okay, So, you have a sheet in front of you, and I would like you to, you should have been doing this in all of your classes, so hopefully you are able to do this. I would like you to turn to the second page. At the top it says teamwork. Everybody see that? Second page, at the top it says teamwork. And I want you to complete that page. We will go over it in a couple of minutes, and then we'll do some other work on that, okay? I do not have a pen or pencil. Anybody have a pen or a pencil that can be used?